This podcast may contain explicit language. Well, this is definitely not the episode I'm sure you were expecting when we started Military Month this month of May for Memorial Day. This certainly doesn't fit any scale of a military movie whatsoever. But instead, what happened is we had to take the week off this week, and we apologize. There was a death in the extended family, and Dana and I had to take off to see to a lot of different matters this week that required more pressing attention than trying to fit in another movie for you. And frankly, it was kind of a needed break at times as well, given that we have done one a week since I think the beginning of February, end of January for all of you, middle January, if memory actually serves me now. So it was nice to get a week where we didn't feel pressed to put one out for the rest of you. That being said, we will be back next week with glory, as we promised earlier in the Bridge Too Far episode. But this particular episode, if you're not aware of the movie, The Artist, was the Best Picture winner from 2011. It was pretty much the front runner through most of that award season, and it was kind of an unusual film. It is only the second Best Picture winner ever to be a silent film, next to one of the two first winners, if you count them as first winners. I personally count them both as Best Picture winners in that first year, where we had Best Picture, Best Production, and we had Best, I think, Artistic Production in the same year. So we had Wings, which was a big World War I epic movie that I think was produced by Howard Hughes. And then we also had Sunrise, A Song of Two Humans, that I deem also being a Best Picture winner during that year, even though it wasn't, I guess, the big prize. But it's hard to say. The history of the Oscars, at least in that first one, was unusual. That being said, this is a silent film from 2011. It's usually been available on Netflix. I have not looked recently to when it or where it might be available. It was at the time, but this is actually an episode that I recorded as a favor last year for one of our regular returning guests, my little sister, Sarah. And this happens to be one of her favorite movies, one that actually inspired her to get into a lot more silent films as kind of a hobby, or one that she gravitates toward. And so I apologize, the quality and the audio and the rest of this is certainly not what you would have expected from us recently, with the amount of editing and production work that I have done more recently, especially this season, as we've developed new tools, learned new things. And it's kind of indicative of the journey we've gone through as a show and as a podcast, that we've come kind of this far. So this is kind of a look back to last August, when I recorded this as a birthday favor for my little sister, who was staying with me at the time due to the pandemic, just to keep actually my dad safe. And where we were at as far as editing and production and the rest of this, I've held on to it since that point, just for you guys as a potential fill-in episode. And you can really kind of see the difference where we're at now from where we were then. I will have all of this up for you. I know that I teased Sarah a little bit throughout, and some of you have criticized me for that. So if some of the attitude in this was a little bit off-putting, I certainly understand, and have tried to be different with at least some of the family guests that we've had on this season. I think Sarah is supposed to be on in a few weeks to do a different movie with us. We'll see if that can work out. The last time we had some technical difficulties that prevented her from being on the dodgeball episode with us. But it'll just depend on where things are at. So all that being said, this is a very unique movie. Again, the Best Picture winner from 2011. It was pretty much the front runner throughout that award season, and I hope you enjoy The Artist. Welcome to the Greatest Movie of All Time podcast. I'm Tom Duncan.
I fulfill a promise.
we're discussing the artist, which happens to be our now returning or recurring guest star's favorite movie, and that would be Sarah Duncan. How are we doing?
I'm great, Tom. How are you?
Oh, just fine. Wish I didn't have to discuss this movie, but you would... this happens to be your favorite, correct?
Yes. I have been in love with silent films since I was in middle school when Netflix just started to have a small